So, we're on another day here. We're back at the house because there's not a lot I can do at work just now. We have sorted out the rear axle. It's all cleaned and prepped, aside from the brakes, which probably need a bit of a clean. And yeah, we're just getting to work on the other Land Rover chassis and engine here, getting the engine stripped down, possibly in preparation for taking the engine out and getting the chassis strip bare for blasting, hopefully. So today we're going to try and get a lot of the ancillaries off, like water pumps and charger whirlers, turbo, blah blah blah, inlet manifold, outlet manifold, possibly even exhaust if I get that far, the gearbox, but I don't know if I'm going to have the time today. Radiator as well, fan, that's all going to come off today, I think. Fan's a good one. You can get a special tool for undoing it. It's a very weird size. It's got to be a thin spanner. I made mine. I can't remember what this is from, but it works a treat. So the fans on these, like I said, there's a tiny little nut there, and it's reverse thread, so you just jam it on. Sometimes they come loose quite easily. Sometimes you've got to really work on them and try and jam up the crank on the belts and stuff like that. This has been off quite recently, so it should just snap off like so. Yeah, just spin that off until she's good and free. Takes a little bit. There we go. So with the viscous fan off, we can now remove the fan shroud. There's usually two little clips on the top here that hold the fan shroud to the cross brace here, which holds the radiator and the intercooler. I've taken this off already. Keep an eye out for the bottom here. There's clips that hold the pipework in place. This one's rotten and falling off, but just make sure that's not caught, and it should just lift off. So the shroud out of the way, now we can get to the pipework at the bottom, undo this, and also your oil cooler feed and return, top and bottom here, and then your overflow to your expansion tank. This is all assuming that you've drained all your liquids out, oil and water, because we don't want to be getting an absolute mess everywhere. This radiator, I think, is going to be getting replaced because it's got a slight leak in the bottom, and she's a bit rotten, and every fin is just completely rotten. They're just falling apart here. So new radiators, maybe 80 quid or so. It's not too bad considering its job. So we'll get another one ordered hopefully, or we'll see what like the one is on the other Land Rover. But for now, we'll probably just err on the side of caution and buy a new one. So yeah, didn't quite empty it all, but you know, yeah, it got me. Over to the oil feeds. I'm just going to leave a pan at the bottom just to catch any drips. I'm sure there'll be one or two drips that come out of it, so just to make sure I don't contaminate the ground. Oil pan underneath. We don't want the same thing happening again. So I believe it's a 20 or 21mm spanner for these unions. I don't have a 21mm spanner, I've got an adjustable spanner, so that'll just have to do. This one. Two. Last off then is just your overflow to your expansion tank, and then radiator's good to go. Right, next thing I'm going to do then is take all this pipework off and take it from there. Now, if you're not sure about these engines, if you're taking something like this apart, the best thing to do, take a whole lot of pictures where everything goes. That way you don't forget. I've had this thing apart a good few times, enough to know where everything should be, in theory. Right, that's the radiator pipework out of the way. So what we're going to do now is remove the auxiliary belt, and we will take off the alternator, charger whirler, and maybe even take the exhaust and inlet manifolds off. Again, if you're not sure, take pictures of the layout as to how it goes. This also had air conditioning pump sat there. That's what this idler and tensioner was here. That just ran off the back crank and skimmed across the timing pulley here. I removed that, but yeah, like I said, take pictures, plenty of pictures, make sure you know where everything's routed. Inlet manifold and turbo, I just want to take those off just because the weather's pretty bad and I've drained the oil. I'd rather not have it season up on me. It doesn't feel particularly great. It's a little bit I don't know, it's not notchy, but it doesn't feel right, so I'm going to tear that down and make sure that's fine. Not very oily, just mainly from the crankcase, so from the breather even, so that's not too bad. But we'll take it apart just to make sure. So let's take it apart. The auxiliary belt on this is pretty easy. It's a 15mm, just on the tensioner. Again, this is a lot easier when the body's not on it, but if the body was still on it, you could probably still access it from the top. But for ease, I'm just put it there, lift the tensioner belt off, tensioner down. That's her free. Time for a new one. So for the back of the alternator, the wires, there's 1, 2, 3 8mm nuts. Whap them off, take that cover off, and you should be able to access the block connectors. So undo those 3, lift the wires out. Now for the alternator itself, it's fixed, it's not adjustable. 2 mounting points, top, bottom, 10mm in the front, 13mm in the back. These should be easy enough to undo. There we go. Top one's through the nut and bolt, bottom one just goes into the casing there. So pull that out, give it a wiggle, and she's free. So last thing I'm going to do today is take off the inlet manifold, exhaust manifold, turbo, and the exhaust, or half the exhaust that's left here. Not forgetting that there is sensors. There's just I think it's an air temperature sensor that's in this manifold. I can't remember to be sure. And not forgetting your oil lines, your feed, and your return at the bottom, and your pressure line here to your boost switch. So yeah, pull those off first, and then it's just a case of nuts and bolts.